This podcast is made possible because of my wonderful patrons. I want to thank Randy Brown, Rob Barnett, Crystal Strong, Bella Pori, John Munson, Betsy Hodges, Levi Petrie, Stephen Malio, Steve Rogers, Dale Hozak, Terry Smith, Anna Lynn, Chris Bloom, and Mary Thomas. I appreciate all of y'all kicking in your hard won cash to help me spread the good news of Bruce Springsteen's music. I love y'all.
The way I was sort of raised was like, I don't know, the classical music when it comes to like the ear is sort of the equivalent of like, I don't know, like the steak part of the meal, whereas pop music was like the candy thing, like the ice cream. I don't know, at the end, for lack of a better synonym. So I guess it's more accessible to the average person, a little bit just ear candy, just fun to listen to. You don't have to think about it too much. Whereas classical, it's like you get like a little too intellectual there. You know, you gotta the practice alone is can be exhausting at times, to say the least. But also, what I really enjoyed about pop music and jazz music that I just didn't get out of classical, and my teachers would not teach me, could not teach me, was playing the same song differently every time, to the same chord progression, but it's a different song every time. From that vantage point, there's something much more exciting about being able to step outside the box and produce your own music at every live performance from scratch within the confines of the structure of the song.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Tonight, we are getting off the Bruce Springsteen train, though I'm sure he will come up as he normally does. And tonight, we're talking violins and fiddles and a little bit of every kind of music. Asher Laub is joining me. Asher, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jesse. It's really an honor.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, so long story short, and I'm not good at short stories, but I'll do
That's
my best
good
here.
because the worst part of a podcast, right, is you ask a question, they go, yes. And you're kind of, okay, hoping I was getting a little more there. So,
Well, it's
yes.
just flat out awkward, and I'm an awkward guy, but I'm not that awkward.
Exactly. Okay.
So, so I'm a violinist, composer, producer, live performer. Do a lot of shenanigans on social media. Those of you who kind of just get bored of the music, but alone or looking for some interesting stuff in tandem with the music. But I started at the age of two, tender age of two. I'm not sure why. Maybe because my parents are crazy, and I love them dearly. Love them dearly. But I guess they wanted me to start early just to build the skills. And started on this little margarine box with rubber bands serving as strings, and kind of progressed through the Suzuki method with acoustic violin, actual acoustic classical violin, really tiny at the age of three, and kind of grew along with them as I went through adolescence and until I hit the, I'm going to say about junior year, about maybe eighth grade. I was probably playing a full size violin. I didn't really dabble in pop music or classic rock until I was about, I'm going to say, high school.
Okay.
But that's what really piqued my interest. I always listened to classic rock. I always knew music. Always knew Bruce Springsteen. Grew up with that stuff. But I was taught a pretty strict classical series of lessons weekly for my entire life. Suzuki method, the etudes, all that stuff. But I'm going to say that those were the foundation for what I do today, which is essentially contemporary music featuring the violin. You know, a lot of that's popular pop music, classic rock, um, and I enjoy it thoroughly. And I don't know if I would be a professional musician. I don't know if I would have chosen this route professionally if I didn't have this as an option.
So, Asher, starting that early, it might be hard for you to answer, but Is it hard to learn how to play the violin?
If you want to learn it well, it's best to start earlier. It can be a
Yeah.
pretty frustrating instrument to learn. It's not quite like the drums, which is a little more accessible, I'm going to say, from my personal experience. Even the piano, just learning chord structures, your hands are sort of, everything's laid out for you. You can get infinitely complicated with these instruments, but violin, just like eking out a quality sound is just a pain in the ass.
Well,
I got
and
to tell you.
the reason
Mhm.
I ask is, and we talked before I hit record. My wife and I just went through a rewatch of the Ken Burns country music documentary, and one of the things he goes into is the different instruments that make up country music and how they came from different genres and different countries and cultures. But a couple people they will talk about, they'll say, and I can't remember which musician now, but and he taught himself how to play the violin. I go, okay, I could see kind of learning to play the piano by ear or learning the guitar maybe by playing around, but it seems to be that you've got to be pretty you've got to have some pretty good chops to try to learn the violin on your own. And I just wanted, as someone who is a very good violinist, to give your thoughts on that.
Well, thank you. It's really nice of you. So Charlie Daniels taught himself violin.
I don't remember which artist, but someone did. They were talking about they picked up the fiddle and learned it.
Well, I could tell you it was not Itzhak Perlman.
No, it was not. Yes.
And I know for that for a fact because my aunt Sheila, God, she's got to listen to one of my podcasts at this point.
Yes.
I've mentioned her in like 50 already, just different interviews. And my teacher, Thomas Halpin, they were both contemporaries with Itzhak Perlman and Juilliard. And they both learned from Ivan Galamian. So, yeah, he was very traditionally raised in music, in learning the violin. But it is honestly, I never really explored which fiddlers, which violinists that I've listened to, professional violinists such as maybe Charlie Daniels, for instance, who's less traditional, more like a kind of bluegrass guy, have had like intensive training or just sort of picked it up and had a passion for it.
Mhm.
Um, I could tell you that it certainly helps to start really young. I definitely had an advantage there. I don't know if I would have been able to do what I do, me personally. I mean, some people are more talented than I am, but I had the benefit and the advantage of many, many years under my belt doing scales, stuff like that. And that definitely set the stage for improvisation. That being said, when you're talking about the world of bluegrass, there's a tremendous amount of sophisticated elements to improvising within bluegrass, within chord progressions, and just getting the tonal quality that you get out of the instrument. It is just that and the flute. I cannot play the flute. My sister plays it. I try to pick it up. It's just a mess for me. Getting the tone right, hitting the strings at the right pressure is it takes more than hours of repetition and practice. I'm going to say that even being raised in a traditional classical background for many years, that does not guarantee that you are going to be good at bluegrass or jazz or any form of improv or even just playing pop music properly. I mean, a lot of folks that I know in New York who have gone to Manhattan School of Music, for instance, great classical musicians, great sight readers, but don't they really don't do too well when it comes to more contemporary music.
Lot to unpack there. So,
I just gave you a wind.
no, I love this. Couple of, did you always enjoy playing? Because you
No,
hear this, I was going to ask, I mean, that young, I picture young Asher rebelling, going, no, I don't want to do my scales.
so I wasn't rebelling in my own way,
Yeah.
with I guess getting distracted, but I was brought up in a very loving home and family, and I actually have a lot of fond memories despite the challenges of starting that young, and despite the challenges of it just being a really difficult instrument, and despite the physical challenges and the impact that it had on my back. Not on everybody, but me in particular. I mean, I was predisposed to adrenal issues. I pretty much shows with the world that I was diagnosed with adrenal insufficiency and inflammatory condition prior to that, and that landed me in a wheelchair. But it wasn't the violence fault that I ended up there, but it definitely exacerbated the problem. And I wouldn't recommend somebody with those preconditions to pick up the violin.
So, Asher, one of the questions I usually start with is what kind of music did your family listen to? But I think it's even more appropriate to ask that question because they must have had a musical background to get you started that early. Or am I
Yeah.
making the wrong assumption?
No, you're making the right assumption. Absolutely. Not guaranteed, but
Yeah.
I think it was more of like a resume thing, or they wanted me to kind of aspire to be like my Aunt Sheila, who's in the Boston Symphony. All my siblings played. My mother plays the ukulele, was brought up in a reasonably like musically sophisticated type of family. My dad played fiddle around the campfire in upstate New York, paleontological excavation during the summers. Good memories there. So yeah, it's something that they valued, they cared about, but they weren't professional musicians themselves.
Was it mostly classical music around the house growing up, or did they play some pop? Did they play show tunes? Did they play other kinds of music?
So my dad, I don't know if my dad, he was playing like a little bit of Fiddler on the Roof kind of thing, but nothing, nothing too intense. A little bit of basic classical, but what they had was us siblings, performing in the family room for weekly guests. I mean, we did
Hmm.
many performances, and then we did pretty intensive performances as kids in elementary school, middle school, through high school. The Greater Buffalo Youth Orchestra sent us to competitions like NISMA, New York statewide competitions. So yeah, pretty much born and bred on that stuff.
So one of the things that Bruce shared about in on Broadway is that after seeing Elvis on TV, he wanted a guitar, but his fingers were too small and he couldn't play it well enough. And it wasn't till later, and also the lessons were boring. He didn't want to learn, he wanted to play rock and roll. He didn't want to play, what was being taught. You said you did not start till like junior high hearing the sweet sound of the the seduction of pop music. My words, not yours. You just were you enjoyed doing that, and then just talk to me how you kind of awoken to this other kind of music and went, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of cool.
I mean, I'm trying to think like the way I was sort of raised was like, I don't know, the classical music when it comes to like the ear is sort of the equivalent of like, I don't know, like the steak part of the meal, whereas pop music was like the candy kind of
Okay.
thing, like the ice cream. I don't know, at the end of the
Yeah.
meal, for lack of a better synonym. So I guess it's more accessible to the average person, a little bit just ear candy,
Yeah.
just fun to listen to. You don't have to think about it too much. Whereas classical, it's like you get like a little too intellectual there. You got to the practice alone is can be exhausting at times, to say the least. Um, but also, what I really enjoyed about classical about pop music and jazz music that I just didn't get out of classical, and my teachers would not teach me and could not teach me was playing the same song differently every time, to the same chord progression, but it's a different song every time. And from that vantage point, um, there's something much more exciting about being able to step outside the box and produce your own music at every live performance from scratch, within the confines of the structure of the song. And I thought that there was something really appealing about that at the age of whatever, 16, 17. And I felt like I was able to connect more meaningfully with my peers, the other musicians who I was hanging out with, jamming with. Whereas sort of like, sitting with an orchestra and you're really not interacting with anybody. You're literally just regurgitating um, the music that somebody wrote a long time ago, which is valuable and important. And I don't mean to trash my upbringing as or classical music, but this is the value that I got that from jazz and from rock that I just didn't get from um, sitting behind a music stand.
So what I hear you're saying is that um, performing in an orchestra is a lot more structured and there is a system to it versus sometimes and often playing pop or rock or country or jazz, you're more free to improvise about, and even though the notes may be the same, they're played differently, and versus the whole purpose of the orchestra is to be consistent.
Yeah, and to kind of stick to the script,
Yeah,
which I'm not a huge fan of doing. I don't feel like it expresses. I'm able to express my own feelings, thoughts, authenticity. And the notes are not the same with with jazz or pop. The chord structure is generally the same, but the notes could be different each time,
yeah.
which I kind of really like.
So I do not mean for this podcast to be a commercial for Ken Burns' documentary, but they had and I'm drawing a blank on which Marcellus. One of them was talking about,
Marcellus?
yeah, was talking about that. He said if you look at a jazz combo and like they will, the piano will go play a solo, or you know, the trumpet will play a solo, and there'll
Mm-hmm.
be this weaving back and forth. He said, go watch Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, and it's the same style that they will go off and they'll have the fiddle do a thing, or the electric car, the slide guitar, the steel guitar will
Uh-huh.
play a thing. And he says if you look at them, it's the same style, as there's a band leader and they're having this jazz trio or quadro doing all these different things back and forth, and a Western swing band does a lot of the same things too. And I had
Yeah,
never thought about that, but once he pointed out, you're like, oh my goodness, that's very clear. So yeah.
yeah, cut from a similar cloth. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. So we talked before we hit record, and I just sent you the link. And you guys, if you want to Google it, on this documentary, Charlie Daniels tells the story about meeting Isaac Perlman, and Charlie says something like, "Well, I'm just a simple country fiddler," and Perlman says we're all fiddlers. And so I sent you the link so you could do that. And so you said you had an answer to what's the difference between a violin and a fiddle. And so I said, okay, hold it. Let's wait till we're recording. So that's my question.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I hope that I answer correctly. I'm sure there's going to be some listeners will be like, oh, that's not the definition. But from my personal experience, which may be different from Webster's, um, it the two are kind of the same, but it's maybe just the way that you play it. I've always thought that like a fiddle is more kind of a bit warmer, has a bit of a warmer tone. At least it lends itself to the music, whereas a classical violin is a bit more trebly and lends itself more to playing in a concert hall or Bach, Mozart. The music is different. So yeah, I could see there being a debate about that. And generally, I have my classical instrument that I chose because it has more of like a warm fiddle type resonance, um, and that's something that I really enjoy more so than even like those $200,000 collector's violins that have a bit of a shrill tone. I would even prefer to play my fiddle type acoustic classical violin to Bach, Mozart, um, any of those classical concertos. Just because I like the tone more. Um, I actually compared it to a Stradivarius. I went to Manhattan once, and I told the collector, the guy who was selling it, to close his eyes, turn around. He chose my acoustic violin over the other one. Then he like corrected himself. Oh no, I meant that one.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was unmistakable. It's not it. It wasn't so easy to tell the difference. That being said, the Stradivarius sound gorgeous, but
Yeah.
anyway, getting off topic a little bit.
No, no, not at all. Did you end up going to school for music? Did you continue your education all the way? And
So I went off that track to get a stable career, quote unquote. Went into the sciences. My musical education was private lessons and then orchestras literally every week of my life, up until I was about 19, and then I stopped. I took a couple lessons after that, like with some real pros, but I basically hit the ground running once I moved to New York, as a professional violinist, working my way through school. So playing the club dates and the weddings, the corporate events, the orchestras, stuff like that. Since I sent in, what do you call it? Not applications, but I sent in like recordings. So I sent in a tape to these different bands. Said, hey, interested in my services? Sure, come to work for us. So that was sort of the chronology there. When I was about, say, 2001, 2002. That's when I started working professionally.
and when did you decide you wanted to do things a little differently?
That was actually about the time that well, it's still been evolving since 2001. It
Yeah.
even to this day, it's constantly changing. You see the progression of my videos. You see all the crazy, wacky things that I do. Like there's the dancing, choreography. There's the DJ violin kind of concept that I do because I am an electronic producer. There's the electric guitar tones that actually lend themselves to the whole Bruce Springsteen experience. I love playing classic rock on violin, on electric violin. So it's constantly evolving, and I'm always dabbling in different aspects of that instrument. But um, from my senior year in high school, I'm going to say when I started to think, from the vantage point of a professional earning money, what's going to work for me. That's when I started to pursue improv, contemporary music.
Hmm. I know I had a guy on a couple of years ago that is a pretty good ukulele player, and he for a while, when Bruce was on Broadway the first time, he actually did a whole show of Bruce covers on the ukulele. That was, he figured out which songs of Bruce worked for that. What, and this is going to be probably too much trying to get inside your head, but what teaches you, what kind of clues you in that, oh, you hear a song, you go, I could do something with that. I can do like I could do a note by note, copy of that, but that's not going to entertain me or my audience. Oh, there's something here that I could do, I could have a little fun with. Talk to me through that process.
Well, okay, so just there, I really think there are infinite permutations and examples where the violin fits very well actually as the solo instrument, which is still novel. I'm going to say, unfortunately, because just having done it professionally for the last 20 years, I can't tell you how many songs I've played that people have really enjoyed the instrumental version of and actually sung along to it. My most recent like cover, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples.
Please, that's good.
The most the most appealing to me is really, as a violinist, I'm going to say something that fits really well is the music in the electronic realm, really clean type of beats. The song "Say So," I did a cover of that. I felt like it's like got a back groove. It's got a real cool funk type of vibe. Classic rock also works really well, but I have to change the tone to electric guitar for it to work.
Hmm.
And when I do, it sounds great. Again, Bruce Springsteen music, I'm going to say for the most part, I'd change it. I would switch to my electric guitar tone, which I'm really proud of and I enjoy doing regularly at live gigs. When it comes to just the violin sound, unless it's like a sad song, mellow song, when we're talking talking about upbeat music, electronic funk, um, even like hip hop.
Yeah.
Um, but the way you play it is really important. If you're like Itzhak Perlman, I would, and who am I to tell Itzhak Perlman how to play? But I have my personal preference when it comes to like not over vibrating each note,
Hmm.
whereas you would do that more with a traditional like Baroque piece, for instance. But when you're doing like a pop music or you're playing like a Chick Corea song like off the top or um, Spain, those of you guys who listen to fusion jazz at all, that's you can't vibrate too much, and you're you're not doing too many trills. You're focusing more on, I guess, I'm not really articulating this too well, but playing around the chord changes.
When did you go from being part of a band to you decided, and maybe you're not, maybe you still are part of a band, where you started doing more solo work? And especially, I'd love to hear more about your producing and the other artists you're working with.
Yeah. So you're basically correct. It's been a bit of a circuitous route up to this point. I played 100% with the bands as a sideman the first half of my career, and say, and I kind of got old, and I felt like I needed to express myself even more, in the way that I felt people needed to hear my instrument, and I started venturing off into my own direction, and that's when I started really the dance choreography performance, and that's when I started my electric violin. Uh, you know, I'm going to say performances to original music such as Neon Dreams, Atlantis, On the Road. These are all songs that you could check out on my Spotify. In addition to a lot of the covers that I do, and since I'm going to say 5 years ago when I really started pushing that, 5 6 years ago, I realized that I missed playing with bands a little bit, and aside from my own band, and I kind of enjoyed playing with many different musicians. So I look for an eclectic experience. I look to play sometimes with DJs who I think are really talented producers, and also live mixers and their live whatever concerts. And I look to play with just a variety of like Bollywood, pop, classic rock type groups. I like the challenge of you know bringing my sound, my unique sound to the stage with different unique talent and vice versa. So
Yeah. When you were part of the band, and was there the two extremes? There was a song when you're like, oh, great, I'm really looking forward to play this one. And then there was where you roll your eyes and they go, I guess we got to do this one, but I
yeah,
would I would love to hit skip on this one.
yeah, and honestly, that's why I left in the first place because I really got tired of the same repertoire. I got tired of playing
Yeah.
with the same musicians, and I, I felt like, okay, I got 3 other degrees in the sciences. I did that for a reason because I didn't want to. I got tired of the daily routine, um, and, and I was really looking for more joy, and I looking for more really improv, literally improv beyond just the improvisation of notes and music, but not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring in terms of repertoire and stage and performance and audience. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, because we'll I'll watch, and nowadays, almost anything is available because of cell phones and such, but you'll see, Bruce call an audible. For a while there he was taking signs, and they'll do like a cover of Jolie Blanc, and Susie, who's the violinist, will go off on this, this Cajun, and just have fun, and you could just see the band is just enjoying themselves because, hey, we've taken a turn and we're getting to do something a little different.
yeah,
So yeah, I
that's pretty
imagine
cool.
that is part of the joy of why, right? Why you love making music.
Yeah, I love the unpredictability within the context of predictability,
Yeah.
meaning to tease that out. Like, I don't want to know exactly what's going to happen. I just want to know that it's going to be kind of joyful and it's going to work out.
Hmm. So what is the question that you get most that you're tired of asking. So I won't ask it.
I don't get tired of really any too
No,
many.
but there is
I
it.
can't think of anything, but
Okay.
I'm not too tough of an interviewer. Interviewee, should
Yeah.
I say?
Because
Um, Go
there
ahead.
was a great Douglas Adams had a book, and there was a um the character said, I'm a private detective, and the young lady he was talking to said, I had a neighbor that was a cello player. And you're like, where is he going? And she says, like, and the question he got tired of being asked is, oh, like, how do you carry the cello around? And she goes, I'm trying to think what question you're tired of hearing as a private detective, so I won't ask it. So I always think of that's kind of cool that there isn't anything that you kind of get beaten down asked for. Like
I
with
mean,
it,
I,
yeah.
I feel like generally when somebody asks you a question about your instrument, it even if it isn't like a useful question, or even if it's a silly question for whatever that is,
Hmm.
it shows some degree of interest and appreciation for what you're bringing. So it's more about like connecting with another
Sure.
human being, which is really kind of the purpose behind music
Yeah.
and anything else. And I think that people who get like overly irritated, maybe I don't know, maybe don't get that pissed off, because it's like you
Yeah.
should just be happy that you got fans that love you and love what you
Yes.
do.
Yeah, I tell this story often, and it to date me. Um, I remember watching Linda Ronstadt on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and she was telling about she gets tired of singing Blue Bayou and Poor Pitiful Me, and she says, and I got tickets to see Frank Sinatra, and I had all these songs I wanted him to sing, and in the middle of the show, it hit me. Oh, wait, my audience is what I am. And she goes, and I never mind playing those songs again because I knew that there's someone in the audience that that's their favorite song. And so it brought a joy to me from that perspective.
Yeah. Uh, so now that you mention it in that context, I'm sort of wrapping my brain around like, it, like when it comes to song requests, for example, like there are some songs that I just feel like, oh God, that just really doesn't work with the violin. Like not
Yeah,
every song works with the violin unless
right.
you revamp it from the bottom up. But I don't know. I just like songs like Stairway to Heaven, or like they're cute and I'll enjoy it, but I'm not like in love with playing because it's one of the most overplayed songs on the planet.
Right.
Um, yeah, but it's good. I respect it. I mean, when people like get really excited about kind of like mumble rap songs and they want me to like jam to it, but there's no beat and there's no chord
Yeah.
progression, that can bug me.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
again, it's within the context of like I try to be patient because I appreciate that they want to hear music from me, and
Yeah.
so I don't like snap at them.
So I've told this story multiple times on the podcast, but based on a very unscientific survey of one, there's a better than 50% chance if you walk up to a guy or a gal, or gender neutral, to be fair, with a guitar at a pub or a restaurant with a tip jar, and you throw your money in there and go, hey, can you play some Bruce Springsteen? Over half the time, it'll be I'm on fire. That's based
Ah,
on my unscientific, but it just seems. And so I never, I don't go, damn it, why do you? But I get incredibly happy if they do something else, like, oh, tougher than the rest, I'll do that. Or I remember I was in New Orleans, and they were doing it was at the Spotted Cat, and they were a couple of guitarists and a couple of singers, and you know, they were passing the hat, and my wife looked at me and said, "Go ahead." And the the singer was like, "What?" I said, "Well, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and she knows I want to ask you if you're going to do a Bruce Springsteen song." And she's, beaten down, and she goes, "Oh, Atlantic City is one of my favorite songs. I'll do it for you." And so I was like, "Yes!" So yeah,
that's
um,
probably coming from somebody who's like a serious like you know consumer of his music,
right,
like not somebody who doesn't just know his most famous songs.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so who were your idols growing up? I mean, and who influences you today?
Well, Bruce for sure. I mean, he's everybody's idol. I mean, he's literally a legend. And it's funny when you tell a story like you did about Bruce watching Elvis, the one
Yeah,
idol watching another idol, and Elvis just came before him. Could have been
right.
vice versa. Um, another guy who influenced modern music. You know, people that maybe your listeners don't know. Um, I'm in terms of relevance to what I do. Folks like David Garrett. He's a crossover violinist. He's an extremely accomplished classical violinist who moved into contemporary. Um, does a lot of pretty cool pop covers. Lindsey Sterling also. She's really just revolutionized the contemporary violin industry, if you will. A lot of people are following in her path because she's been so wildly popular. She's really shown people what the violin is capable of. Outside of that, Chick Corea, Bella Fleck, they've influenced me in the improv aspects of music, and of course Itzhak Perlman from classical in the classical realm.
Yeah.
Um, I could just go on and on. I mean,
Do
I
you
love the Beatles, and
do you do you ever once in a while want to pull out something classical and just play it for your own amusement or just to kind of surprise the audience?
yeah, and I do like I can't believe I keep forgetting what the dream that I had on Sunday
Yeah.
that was actually reality. I played for the King of Morocco.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I know that's what I said. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was at a private party. His entourage was literally right there. Um, this is probably one of the cooler stories that's ever happened to me, to be honest.
Please, let's go for it.
I really just that encounter alone. I pulled up. I don't even know if I'm at ease to even mention the place on Wall Street. It was on Pearl
Okay.
Street. There's a
All right.
hint,
That's fine.
but it was like smack in the middle of Wall
Yeah.
Street. And I moved a cone so that I could actually park there. There was a space, and I was thinking like, well, who's these obnoxious people? They're putting cones to block the spot. And I moved it, and I got back in my car so I could unload some equipment to whatever head to the elevator before I parked. And this guy comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, sir, you can't move that cone." And I said, like, I was thinking, like, to hell, like, sure, I can. Like, um, it, he's like, no, yeah, I'm the FBI. I'm like, well, oh, okay. And I
Okay.
just sort of like stared at him, like, please don't arrest me, sir.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm just here for a party, and I was thinking maybe it's my client because I do have some pretty heavy duty clients that I don't even realize how big they are until like later on. Um, but this was like a repeat client. Anyway, it wasn't for them. It was for the King of Morocco, who was literally there within the hour that I was playing. He invited me over to play for his group. And I asked my client, I'm like, can I do this? Sure, please do. And they all kind of huddled around watching. Like they were literally just staring at him the whole time because it's like, by the way, they thought he was the prince. They said,
Okay.
oh, it's the Prince of Morocco. I, I think because they were purposefully misinformed because of security reasons.
Sure.
I looked at the photo. I'm like, there's no way in hell that's the prince. That is the king. I'm looking at him right now. That is him. I asked him, okay, what song would you like? He said, whatever you want. Anyway, I just played one song. They were all clapping, enjoying. I regret not having prepared a Moroccan song, but who the hell was supposed to
Yeah.
know that they're going
Yeah.
to
I
end
you
up in that situation?
right.
If it
That
was Bruce Springsteen there, I would have had a song prepared for him.
yeah.
But
What would you done? What would you do if it was Bruce?
you're going to kill me, but I'm on fire.
That's okay. See, I'm proving my point. And there's no, I mean, it's a good song. It's a short song. I mean, I had just earlier this week a guy who is a writer who is writing a history of uh, videos, music videos. And he said, I'm on Fire is by far Bruce Springsteen's greatest music video. He said, without a doubt, everything about it. And he got into John Sayles, did a trilogy of Springsteen's, uh, videos and stuff. So I have nothing against the song. I'm just saying,
It's just overplayed.
well, just it is just I love it every time they do it. It's just, yep, it's gonna be, and I love the fact you're like, well, I would have done On My Fire. So like that's great.
I
So
mean,
cool.
nobody asked for Thunder Road.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty cool. That would be very cool. So Asher, what's next? What do you got going on next? What next mountain are you trying to climb?
Well, I plan on going on tour with Bruce Springsteen after he hears this interview.
There you go. Absolutely, yes.
Bruce, if you're listening, please, my number. Well, you get my number from him,
Yeah,
from,
exactly.
from Jesse. Yeah, he'll be happy to share with you. Actually, Sam Bardfeld, we've worked together over many years. He's gone on tour with Bruce. Pretty sure it's Sam.
Okay.
If it's not, I'm just gonna be embarrassed, but I'm 90% sure it's him. He's yeah, done a bunch of performances with him.
That would be fun.
So yeah, but to answer your question, Atlantis, my recent original single has been released.
Yes.
I'm hoping people appreciate it as much as I do.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I try to listen to my fans. I try to make music that they enjoy as opposed to just what I enjoy. But it seems to be doing pretty well. And I'm collaborating with two singers. One of them's in L.A., the other one's in like Seattle or something like that. Really talented. The one in LA, she's a Hollywood actress, and I can't divulge details because it's not published yet, and I got to get my butt moving on that.
Okay.
But the songs are almost ready. Just there's a lot of like contract stuff that goes on.
Good.
So there's that, and I pretty much release a single every month, so that I'm
Okay.
constantly engaging my fans, and I'm posting little snippets, hints of music with along with some comedy and on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
That's
Twitter,
good.
daily. So
Very nice. Very nice. So any final thoughts before, and then I'm going to have everyone, I'm going to let you promote where to go and where to go, but any final
oh,
thoughts before, or what, one of the things I like to ask is, what have I not asked you that I should have?
well, I mean, we could just extend this to multiple interviews, mostly because I'm able to talk your ear off endlessly. But I like it to be more of a dialogue, even though I'm not too good at that right now.
No, you're doing
Um,
great. This is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this. There,
thanks.
yeah, there's it. Yeah, because I mean, I think it's very interesting that you're going to work with a couple of, singers, because to kind of sweeten their vocals and kind of do that, it's almost either a duet or that kind of adding that adds some different depth. I think it's really, um, there's a lot of beauty when you throw in that violin or fiddle, whatever you want to call it, with certain songs. It really works. So
Thank you for saying that. It's something I've been wrestling with for many years. Trying to, I don't like to use word educate because that's really condescending. It's not even the case, but I'm trying to revamp what is perceived as the role of a violin, of a string instrument. I strongly believe that that the more of what I'm doing is out there, like the more, and there are many instrumentalists out there that are really kind of pushing this. People are going to appreciate it more. And what I'm doing with the song Gratitude, which is already out on Spotify, you can check it out. I've created with this beautiful singer, a vocal version of it, which does not negate the violin. It keeps the violin there, as a prominent soloist, but it's like a 50-50 split. And it's a very different structure to a vocal featured song than you would expect. So, and I think that there's something, I mean, obviously, I hope it wins a Grammy, but bare minimum, I hope people appreciate that. Okay, this is something different that the major labels haven't done. It's a song that features very heavily a vocalist, but also features the violin equally. And it's not just sort of like strings in the background, and it's not forcing anything. It's very powerful, and it's something that people who speak different languages might appreciate. That's why I do all instrumental music, largely instrumental music, because I want people to extrapolate what they want from the music as much as
yeah,
they can. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had a couple of people on the podcast that talk about that they they don't want to be told what the song's about because they don't want to spoil it, right? That it the music speaks to them and they have a story, and whether that is what you meant the story to be or not, it becomes. And there's a great episode of Cocaine and Rhinestones talking about Merle Haggard's Okie from Muskogee, and it talks about the narrator of the podcast says there is no doubt that that was meant as a funny one-off song. They were just joking around. And then they played it in front of a group of Marines, and all of a sudden the song took this whole another path, and Merle Haggard's like, that isn't what I meant the song to mean, but that's what the listeners have taken out of it. And once you put art out there, your audience will hear it and determine for themselves what you're trying to say.
I love that you just said that. By the way, you seem like you have an encyclopedic knowledge of just, I don't know, TV, music.
I just
It's pretty
watch
cool to hear.
way too much TV and listen to way too many podcasts, and I love telling stories. So that's yeah. So
But but you retain it and you so eloquently like just share it. And so that's the impressive thing. Um,
I'm now blushing, but thank you. That's very kind of you.
well, you should blush. No, thank you. Um, I I want to say I mean, I love when fans, listeners, they choose to proactively interpret what that song means to them. That's my dream, to have more passive listeners, to be more proactive. And I have a few folks that are like, okay, this is what it means to me. They want to know what it means to Asher, and I want to know what it means to them. And I tell them the story behind it, but they don't share my experience. They didn't go through, you know, the crazy ups and downs, health wise, that I did. They charted their own path, and that's for that reason that I like when listeners share these things with me.
Yeah. I gotta have you seen Bruce perform live?
I have not had the honor of being seen him live. I've obviously seen him, you
Yeah.
know, perform online. Seen his music videos since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Grew up, with him, but no, I haven't. So Bruce, if you're listening,
That's
once
right.
again,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
available to play. I
yeah,
will cancel all my gigs to
yeah,
go on tour with you.
yeah. If Susie needs a brother, Susie is the violinist on the band, and so she's been on and off since The Rising, really, has been on
Really
most of the albums. Yeah. Um, this is
cool.
great. Gosh, it's so much else to talk about. I will have you on again. All right. Before we get to the Mary question, tell my listeners where they can go and find more information about you, hear about the music, and kind of support your art.
Man, that's multi-step there.
Yes.
Guys, you can check me out at just search Asher Laub, the beauty of Google. Just search Asher Laub, and there's going to be a zillion things that pop up. But if you want to listen to my music, check search Asher Laub within Spotify, iTunes, Deezer, Amazon, like the list goes on. Those type of platforms. If you want to watch me dance my ass off while playing, go to YouTube. If you want to see me make a total ass of myself while playing music, or just like kind of doing all these shenanigans, go to Instagram, Facebook. If you want to hear me play live, go to Facebook, asherlab.com. Yeah.
Why did you decide you wanted to combine comedy and music?
There's a few answers to that. I felt
That's
like
okay.
people were a little too serious when it came to my own fans. I felt like they were a little too serious when it came to the music that I was playing, and like they were just so. It just seemed like a lot of these people, they just needed like an uplifting in a sense, just to like lighten up a little bit. And some people got just offended by just things that just like cute animals, like literally benign things. And I just at that point I felt motivated to just like to start posting just goofy, funny things to have people relax a bit and not take themselves so seriously.
Hmm.
I felt like there's really a therapeutic aspect to that, and I think that the few people that influenced that were kind of tense people, but I value them as supporters of my music. So that was probably the main impetus.
Okay. Do who is there something that you're working on that you just it's in your mind and you're still working on it, but you just quite haven't figured out the steps yet?
Oh, song wise,
Yeah,
or a music video release wise.
kind of a little bit of both.
Man, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. There's a humongous commercial production that was shot literally last year that I don't know what they're like sleeping on. They're like waiting for stuff to happen on my end. And when it does, um, it's a major commercial, and it's a little embarrassing that I started announcing this on stories last year when it was supposed to be released, but so that's something that's kind of been brewing. Features actually Dreaming Awake, my single, which has been out for like 9 months now.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing is kind of weird that I just shared that. Maybe that's called oversharing. Uh, I mean, I have so many songs just swimming around in my head. I'm just trying to figure out which ones to prioritize because I'm dabbling in Bollywood, jazz, pop, original, blend between like Atlantis, classical,
Yeah.
and EDM. Yeah, I mean, my listeners are pretty eclectic, so I'm just trying to meet everybody's needs. Maybe there's too much going on there.
Well, I think one of the things that, and I will not call myself an artist, but I'll say as a podcaster, I try to shake things up. Last month, I did a series of episodes about John Hyatt, the singer-songwriter from Indiana, and I called it John Hyatt Month. I am, I'm continually trying to find it. It's very easy to get a bunch of um, white guys my age to talk about Bruce Springsteen, right? They're like, hey, and I want a diversity. I want to do something things. I want to have different fans of different kind of music and different kind of genres, and we make this a place to talk about the power and magic of music. I just think that's really important. So good for you that you're challenging yourself and you're trying to do things different. And I think this is going to sound arrogant as hell, and your true fans will go along with you on the journey. But the reality is, most of your fans will, right? And that's what you
I
want.
I sure hope so. I try to stay grounded and assume that there's no guarantee that my fans are going to stick around. So I do try to. They don't do surveys, but kind of
Yeah.
hard to get surveys. But I do try to get some feedback, at least during the live sessions. I ask them, "What do you want to hear?" A
Yeah.
lot of times they're just sort of like passively listening and saying, "Oh, we love it, wonderful, beautiful." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, but what do you want to hear? Play what you like."
Yeah.
Okay, I'll play my original music.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some of the same issues of, I end every podcast with a recording, go, I want to hear your feedback. Here's my email address. Here's my Twitter handle. Tell me what you like. And it just, so you assume that, and every once in a while, I'll get someone that'll say, oh, that was a really good discussion. I'm like, thank you. Okay. So, but other times you just assume, like, okay, well, I'm going to have an interesting conversation that I am entertained by, and I hope the audience likes it. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, Asher. This has been a blast. I am so glad we connected. That is sometimes when you pass the net out, it's not always a good match when you're talking to someone. It's like, so this one I've just enjoyed immensely. Before I
Oh,
let you
thank
go
you.
though, so if you are a fan of Asher's music and you're listening to the podcast, thank you for joining us. He did you proud. I end every episode with the Mary question. Jay Armstrong, who is an honors English teacher who recently retired, would, when he was teaching, his honors English class would take 2 days, and they would break apart the song Thunder Road. They would look at all the lyrics, they would talk about the themes, he would compare it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, and then at the end of the 2 days, Jay would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So Asher, that was your homework. Does
Mm.
Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
So I'll do my best. I hope I don't disappoint, but then I'm hoping to hear your perspective.
Okay.
Um, but Mary, from the music video, I guess you could say I cheated. Supposed to just looking at the lyrics.
No.
Um,
This is
there
an
was a
open book test.
this is there was a like a moment where Mary walks onto the porch, and there's like something a little bit, what's the word? Um, there was like a little depressing moment there. It was, I don't know, it was a powerful moment where she looked at the road and it was empty. Like she was getting her hair all made up and getting dressed, and she comes out to the front, and she was like all getting ready to like hop into the car, and there was nothing there. And then the music video sort of cuts to her walking out to the porch and then hopping into the car with him. And there was something, I don't know, eerie about it. It was something like really telling or meaningful. I don't know how to quite explain it, but really, my interpretation from that was that I guess she missed. It's like it's a story of, I guess, the coming of age. Hopefully, I had the general idea, and I guess she missed an opportunity. Like maybe she was pushing it off. Oh, I'm not ready, or I'm not. I don't have time, or I'm too busy, or something like that. And she just maybe pictured herself in in the situation she wished she had been in, if she had maybe not delayed things, or maybe not
Mm-hmm.
uh, hesitated too much. But I'd like to hear what you think.
So
Having said
that's
that.
that's a very good answer. Um, you know, and it says your graduation gown lies in its rags at their feet, and then the lonely cool before dawn, you hear your engines roaring on, but when you get to the porch, they're gone on the wind, right?
Okay.
Um, so my audience is about 60-40. 60% of them say yes, she gets in the car, and about 40% say no, she doesn't. And there's been um, a lot of great answers. One of my favorite is a guy said, well, it depends. If it's the full E Street Band, Bruce and the E Street Band playing Thunder Road, she absolutely gets in the car because the end of the song is a triumph. But when Bruce does it solo, you hear him kind of na 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 na. She doesn't get in the car, and that's our hero driving off by himself. I've been
Oh.
to, yeah. I've been, there are people that have said, some people are like, absolutely, it's Bruce Springsteen. Of course you get in the car. And then there's other people that says, he said you ain't a beauty, but hey, you're right. F you. I'm not getting in the car with you. I want someone who thinks I'm a beauty. So, and I think the beauty of this is the open interpretation. It is the chords are the same, but the notes may be a little different, as you put it. So that's why, even if someone has never listened to Bruce Springsteen, when I have him on the podcast, I go watch the video, read the lyrics, and then there is no right answer. Because to go back to another story, the great science fiction writer Isaac Asimov years ago was at a lecture, and he mentioned a short story, and he told what the story meant, and someone in the audience raised their hand and said, Dr. Asimov, that is not what the story's about. And Dr. Asimov said, I wrote the story. I think I know what the story's about. And his fan said, just because you wrote the story, what makes you think you know what it's about? And Isaac said, you're right. I'm wrong. And so, because people
Oh,
have
that's some
asked,
real balls.
right? Like if you know, if you asked Bruce the question, you would have to quit asking it because Bruce would give you the answer. And I'm like, that's what Bruce thinks it is, but the whole point is we don't know, right? We don't know what it is, and it's everyone's. They have to hear that music. They have to hear the the tune and the feelings and go for it. So absolutely.
I love that.
Asher, this was great. I'm going to do a deep dive into your music. I'm looking forward to. I played a little bit today, getting ready for the interview,
Mhm.
and heard a couple of your covers. Really great. So I want to get in some of your original music. And after Bruce calls you and says, "Hey, yeah, come on tour," you'll have to be back on.
Well, Susie can't always be available. I'm just
That's
saying.
right. Yeah. And after when you're ready to promote your new duets, come back on and we'll do some promotion.
Oh, thank you
Okay.
so much. I would be honored.
Yeah, this is great. It is Asher Laub at Asher Laub Asherlaub on Twitter. Go do a Google search. You're able to find him on Spotify, his website. There's some fun videos on there. Please check him out. My friend, thank you. Listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted, and let's all be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Asher. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you,
Goodbye.
Jesse.
Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only, Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.